Hi everyone, my name is Marie Victoria Robertson. I'm a storyteller, and today I would like to tell you two little stories that'll make you laugh, make you think. Hopefully we'll all have some fun. The first story is a little folk tale that is not actually that old, and it takes place in Canada. You see, not so long ago, there was a man who loved nothing more than to take a nice long bath. Who doesn't? But every morning he would walk into his bathroom, and after spending hours and hours in warm, soapy water, he would finally emerge at the end of the day, squeaky clean and smelling like a rose. Now the problem was that he spent so much time in his bathtub that he didn't do any chores around the house, he didn't do any chores outside the house, and he certainly didn't do any work in the big apple orchard just outside. Now his wife, Clara, on the other hand, she was a hard worker. She was just as clean as he was, even though she didn't spend hours in the bathtub, but she was the one stuck, taking care of absolutely everything. Now she was patient, but only so patient. And she was so tired of him spending hours in the bathtub that she had given him the nickname of Mr. Prune, because after an entire day in the tub, he was doing a pretty good impression of a prune. Now the problem was that winter was coming, which meant all the apples in the orchard had to be picked, but Clara couldn't do it by herself. She was so depressed that she sat herself down in front of her house and started crying. What am I going to do? Who's going to help me? Who's going to get my husband out from his bathtub so he could work in the orchard? Now as Clara sat on her front step, a young boy happened to be walking by the house, and he heard her crying out. And he came to see her. And he said, "Well, my name is John, ma'am, and picking apples, that's sort of a specialty of mine. I would love to be able to help you in your orchard." Now Clara was so happy to finally have some help that she hired him on the spot. They went out to the orchard together, but as they stood in front of all the apple trees, Clara started to feel nervous again. And she said to him, "John, even with your help, I don't know how we're going to do this before winter gets here." John said, "Ma'am, don't worry about a thing. You're about to see that I am worth a dozen grown men." John picked up one of the bushels. He climbed up the tree. He hung the basket from one of the branches, and he climbed back down. And Clara said, "John, that's not actually how you pick apples." And John said, "Just you wait a moment." John stood in front of the apple tree, and he took one big breath. And he took a second big breath. And then a third big breath. So much that he was taking all the air from the orchard into his lungs. He was getting big, big, big. His head was out to here. His nose was out to here. His eyes were tiny, tiny little pinpricks, and his cheeks were big and red as the apples from the orchard. And just when it looked like he was going to explode, little John breathed out when a wind like a tornado surged out of his mouth, surrounded the apple tree, and shook it, shook it, shook it, shook it, until one by one all the apples fell from the branches into the basket. Clara couldn't believe her eyes. "It's a miracle! I've never seen anyone pick apples like that, but you're right, it works." Now John took the basket down and did the same thing with every tree in all of the orchard until all of the trees were picked. Clara was so happy. She offered to pay him double. And John, before he went on his way, he was so happy that he'd made Clara happy that he just wanted to help her some more. And he said, "Well, ma'am, is there anything else I could do for you? Is there another task I could do for you? Or is there maybe a wish you've always wanted to have come true?" And Clara said, "Well, if I could have one wish, it would be that my husband, Mr. Prune, would finally come out of his bathtub and do some work around here." And John said, "Not a problem." So John went And he stood in front of the front door of Mr. Prune's house. And he took a big breath. And he took a second breath. And he took a third big breath. And again, it looked as though he was sucking all the air right out from around the house. And his head grew big, 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 and his nose was out to here, and his eyes became tiny little pinpricks, and his cheeks were big and red as the apples from the orchard. And again, just like it looked like he was going to explode, he exhaled. And the wind came out, and bang went the front door. But the wind didn't stop there. It went all the way upstairs to the bathroom, and bang went the door to the bathroom. And the wind went under the bathtub where Mr. Prune was having his bath, lifted it up into the air, and went right out of the window. Now Mr. Prune, all he could do was hang on to the sides of the bathtub going, "What's going on?" And the bathtub up and down and left and right and round all over town, attracting a crowd of people right now who are looking up going, "Hey, that kind of reminds me of a canoe going down the rapids," or, "You know what, I bet that's what Noah's Ark looked like. Look at him go." And all Mr. Prune could do, "What's going on? Get me down from here." Until finally John ran out of breath. And the bathtub slowly and slowly came down on the top of the tallest hotel in town. Now an employee from the hotel hurried upstairs and gave him a bathrobe, and Mr. Prune, hiding his face in shame, hurried all the way back home. Well, he learned his lesson, because after that day, he could be found working in the house, picking apples in the orchard, peeling all the apples so Clara could make apple pies and applesauce and preserves. But ever since that day, Mr. Prune started saving up his money, but it wasn't to buy a replacement bathtub. It was to buy a high-tech, high-pressure shower.